The conference room aboard Kelvar Station stretched wide enough to hold representatives from 40 different species. Captain Daniel Carter sat in the back row, watching the proceedings with careful attention. Earth had only been part of the Galactic Council for 20 years. Humans were still learning how things worked out here among the stars. Daniel adjusted his uniform and glanced at Ambassador Lisa Montgomery sitting beside him. She was reviewing trade agreements on her datapad, her expression calm and professional. The quarterly summit was always busy, but today felt routine. Species from across the sector gathered to discuss resource rights, territorial boundaries, and shipping lanes. Nothing dramatic, nothing dangerous. The Valorian ambassador stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing as he argued about mining rights in the outer reaches. The crystalline Thessari delegation chimed their responses, their bodies ringing like bells. The Corthan chairman, an elderly being with gray skin and wise eyes, mediated the discussion with practiced patience. Daniel had attended 3 of these summits now. He understood the patterns. Species argued, compromised, and eventually signed agreements that everyone could live with. It was democracy on a galactic scale. Slow, messy, but it worked. The alarm changed everything. A sharp wailing sound filled the chamber. Red lights flashed along the walls. Every delegate looked up at once, confusion turning quickly to fear. Daniel reached for his communicator, but before he could activate it, the main view screen flickered to life. A ship hung in space outside the station. Daniel had never seen anything like it. The vessel was massive, easily 10 times larger than any council ship. Its hull was dark metal covered in ornate designs that seemed to glow with their own light. Symbols Daniel did not recognize marked its surface. At the center, one image stood out clearly. A dragon with wings spread wide. The chamber erupted into chaos. The Valorian ambassador stumbled backward from the podium, his face pale. The Thessari delegation shattered their translation devices in their panic to leave. All around the room, species representatives began pushing toward the exits. Some ran. Others activated emergency transport beacons. Within seconds, half the delegates had vanished. Daniel stood, completely lost. "What's happening?" Lisa grabbed his arm, her usual calm shattered. "We need to leave. Now." "Why? What is that ship?" "The Dragon Clan." Her voice shook. "Daniel, we need to go right now." The Corthan chairman was backing away from his position at the center of the chamber. Daniel had never seen the dignified elder move so quickly. Station security personnel abandoned their posts, running for the docking bays. The few delegates who remained were gathering their belongings with trembling hands. "I don't understand," Daniel said. "Who are the Dragon Clan?" Lisa pulled him toward the exit, but her eyes stayed locked on the view screen. "The oldest spacefaring species in known history. They ruled the galaxy thousands of years ago. Then, they disappeared. No one has seen them in this sector for 300 years. Why is everyone so afraid? Because when the Dragon Clan appears, they take what they want. No one has ever stopped them. No one has even tried." Lisa's grip on his arm tightened. "Please, Daniel, we need to leave before they dock." A voice filled the chamber, speaking in perfectly clear galactic standard. "Attention Galactic Council. This is Commander Zhao of the Dragon Clan. We are claiming Kelvar Prime and all surrounding systems under ancient territorial rights. Current inhabitants have 1 standard cycle to evacuate. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact." The remaining delegates fled. The chamber emptied in moments, leaving only abandoned datapads and overturned chairs. Lisa tried to pull Daniel toward the door, but he pulled his arm free. "1 cycle?" he said. "That's barely enough time to organize transport for a fraction of the population. That's not our problem." Lisa's voice was desperate now. "Daniel, please. The Dragon Clan does not negotiate. They do not compromise. We cannot help here." Daniel looked at the view screen. The dragon symbol seemed to stare back at him. He thought about the Kelvari people below on their homeworld. 6 billion citizens who had just been told to abandon everything they knew. 1 cycle to pack up an entire civilization. "How many Kelvari live on Kelvar Prime?" he asked. 6 billion, But Daniel, you cannot. And we're just going to let them be displaced? We don't have a choice. Lisa's eyes were pleading. The Dragon Clan has ships that can crack planets. They have weapons we don't understand. Every species that ever challenged them was destroyed. This isn't cowardice. This is survival. Daniel looked around the empty chamber. Every species in the galaxy had the same response when the Dragon Clan appeared. Run, hide, save yourself. It was the smart choice. The logical choice. The choice that kept you alive. He walked toward the center of the chamber. Daniel. No. Lisa's voice cracked. Don't do this. Someone has to try, he said quietly. They will kill you. Maybe. But I have to try. The central platform where the Corthan chairman had stood was empty now. Daniel stepped onto it and activated the communication system. His hands shook, but he kept his voice steady. This is Captain Daniel Carter of Earth. I request permission to speak with Commander Zhao. Silence filled the chamber. Lisa stood frozen near the exit. Her face white. Daniel waited. His heart pounding so hard, he could hear it in his ears. The view screen flickered. The image of the Dragon Clan ship was replaced by something else. A figure materialized in holographic form above the platform. She stood nearly 8 feet tall, her body covered in scales that shimmered with colors Daniel had no names for. Her eyes were ancient and cold, like looking into deep space itself. I am Commander Zhao. Her voice resonated through the chamber. You are the human? Yes, Commander. Your species is barely registered in our databases. You achieved spaceflight only recently. You have no authority here. You have no power here. Why do you remain when all others have fled? Daniel took a breath. This was the moment. Every choice he made from here would matter. Because someone needs to speak for the Kelvari people. Zhao's eyes narrowed. The Kelvari may speak for themselves if they choose. We have made our intentions clear. They will not be harmed. They will be compensated for their relocation. But Kelvar Prime belongs to the Dragon Clan under rights established before your species existed. I'm not questioning your rights, Daniel said carefully. I'm asking about your reasons. For the first time, something changed in Zhao's expression. Not anger. Curiosity. Explain. 6 billion people call this world home. Relocating them in one cycle will cause suffering. Deaths. The loss of everything they've built. You have the power to demand this. I'm asking if you have a reason that justifies it. We require resources found on Kelvar Prime. That is reason enough. What resources? Zhao studied him for a long moment. Daniel could feel Lisa's terror from across the chamber. He could imagine every species in the galaxy watching this exchange, waiting to see how the Dragon Clan would respond to being questioned. There is an element called helium in Kelvar Prime's crust, Zhao said finally. We require it for our purposes. The most efficient extraction method involves removing the Kelvari population. Most efficient, Daniel repeated. Not the only method? Efficiency is sufficient reason. Maybe for some species. But I've read the historical records about the Dragon Clan. Before you withdrew from galactic affairs, you were known as protectors. You helped younger species develop. You maintained order. You could have ruled through fear. But you chose wisdom instead. Zhao's eyes flashed. You dare lecture us on our own history? No, Commander. I'm asking if that history still matters to you. The hologram flickered. For a moment, Daniel thought Zhao would end the communication. That she would order the station, destroyed for his impertinence. But instead, she stepped closer, her massive form looming over him. What is your proposal, human? Daniel's mouth went dry. He had her attention. Now, he needed to give her something worth considering. Give me 3 days. Let me work with the Kelvari to find an alternative. If we can provide what you need without displacing billions, would you consider it? No one negotiates with the Dragon Clan. I'm not negotiating. I'm offering to solve a problem. Zhao was silent for so long that Daniel wondered if the communication had frozen. Then she spoke. Her voice careful and measured. 3 standard days. If you succeed in brokering an acceptable agreement, we will honor it. If you fail, the Kelvari will be removed as planned, and you, Daniel Carter of Earth, will face the consequences of wasting our time." The hologram vanished. Daniel stood alone on the platform, his legs suddenly weak. Lisa ran to him, grabbing his shoulders. "What have you done?" she whispered. "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "But at least someone tried." Outside the viewport, the Dragon Clan ship waited. And somewhere on Kelvar Prime, 6 billion people had just received 3 more days to save their world. The first person to return to Kelvar Station was a Thessari diplomat named Crystalline. She materialized in the docking bay 8 hours after the Dragon Clan's arrival, her body chiming nervously. Word had spread across the sector that a human was negotiating with Commander Zhao. Crystalline wanted to see if it was true. Daniel sat in a small conference room, surrounded by data screens showing geological surveys of Kelvar Prime. Lisa had tried to convince him to leave the station, to let the council handle things through official channels, but there were no official channels for dealing with the Dragon Clan. There was only one human who had 3 days to find a solution. "Captain Carter?" Crystalline entered the room, her voice like wind chimes. "You are still alive?" "So far," Daniel said, not looking up from the surveys. "The Dragon Clan has not killed you for speaking to them?" "Not yet." Crystalline settled into a chair designed for her crystalline structure. "This is unprecedented. In 300 years, no one has dared approach the Dragon Clan. You are either very brave or very foolish." "Probably foolish," Daniel admitted. "But someone had to try." More delegates began returning over the next few hours. The Valorian ambassador arrived with 2 security ships, keeping his distance but monitoring the situation. A Korthan observer took up position in the station's command center. Even species that had fled to the far side of the sector sent representatives to watch what happened next. They all wanted to see if the impossible could happen. If one human could change what every species in the galaxy accepted as unchangeable truth, Daniel requested a meeting with the Kelvari government. Within 2 hours, High Minister Kira arrived on the station. She was elderly by Kelvari standards. Her skin pale blue. Her eyes filled with fear. She entered the conference room flanked by advisors, all of them looking at Daniel with desperate hope. "Captain Carter," Kira said, her voice shaking. "Is it true? Did the Dragon Clan agree to negotiate?" "Not exactly," Daniel said honestly. "They gave me 3 days to find an alternative solution. If I succeed, they'll honor it. If I fail, the evacuation proceeds." Kira's advisors began talking all at once, their voices rising in panic. The High Minister raised her hand for silence. "What do you need from us?" Information about Herium. Where it's located on your world. How it's distributed. Everything you know about it." One of the advisors, a younger Kelvari named Brennan, stepped forward with a data pad. "Herium is woven throughout our planet's ecosystem. It exists in trace amounts in the soil, the water, even the air. Large-scale extraction would be catastrophic." Daniel studied the data. The numbers were worse than he had feared. "How catastrophic?" "It would destroy the biosphere," Brennan said flatly. "The planet would recover eventually, but it would take generations. Thousands of years. Kelvar Prime would be uninhabitable for longer than our civilization has existed." Kira's face was pale. "We cannot fight the Dragon Clan. We do not have the military power. If extraction means our world dies, then we have no choice but to evacuate." "There's always a choice," Daniel said. "We just need to find it." He spent the next 12 hours reviewing every geological database he could access. Lisa brought him food that he barely touched. Crystalline offered Thessari analysis techniques. Even the Valorian ambassador, watching from his ship, transmitted mining data that might prove useful. Daniel's eyes burned from staring at screens. His head ached. But somewhere in all this data, there had to be an answer. He found it at 3 in the morning, station time. "Herium exists on other worlds," he said aloud, making Lisa jump from where she had dozed in a chair. What? Look. Daniel pulled up a star chart, highlighting 17 different worlds within the sector. Trace amounts of helium on all of these. 3 of them are uninhabited moons. If you extract from multiple sources instead of one concentrated location, you could gather the same total amount without destroying any ecosystem. Lisa studied the chart. It would take much longer. More ships, more coordination, more resources, but it's possible. The Dragon Clan demanded Kelvar Prime because it's efficient. Why would they accept a slower alternative? Because I'm going to make them see that efficiency isn't the only thing that matters. Daniel requested another communication with Commander Zhao. The holographic projection appeared in the conference room, her presence filling the space. Kira and her advisors stepped back instinctively. Only Daniel remained standing at the table. You have found an alternative? Zhao asked. Yes, Commander. Helium exists on 17 other worlds in this sector. 3 are uninhabited moons. By extracting from multiple sources, you can gather the resources you need without displacing the Kelvari. Zhao's expression did not change. We are aware of these alternative sources. We chose Kelvar Prime because it offers the most efficient extraction. Multiple sites require more time, more vessels, more coordination. Why should we inconvenience ourselves? Daniel had prepared for this. Because efficiency isn't the same as wisdom. Explain. The Dragon Clan withdrew from galactic governance 5,000 years ago. You ruled this galaxy when most current species were still primitive. You could have remained in power. Why did you leave? Zhao's eyes narrowed. That information is not relevant to this discussion. Wendai. Zenom, I think it is. I've read what historical records exist. The Dragon Clan didn't leave because you were weak. You left because you chose to, because you saw what absolute power was doing to your people. For the first time, Zhao showed emotion. Anger flashed across her face. You know nothing of our history. You're right. But I know what the galaxy remembers. The Dragon Clan as protectors, as builders, as the species that helped others grow instead of crushing them. Is that legacy worth preserving, or would you rather be remembered as conquerors who destroy inhabited worlds for convenience? The hologram flickered. Zhao leaned forward, her massive form filling Daniel's vision. You are either very wise or very foolish human. I have not yet decided which. I'm just asking you to consider the alternative. And if we refuse, if we proceed with our original plan? Daniel took a breath. Then 6 billion Kelvari lose their home, and the Dragon Clan proves that 5,000 years of isolation taught you nothing about why you left in the first place. Silence filled the conference room. Kira looked like she might faint. Lisa's hand covered her mouth. Daniel stood his ground, meeting Zhao's ancient eyes. You dare judge us, Zhao said quietly. No, Commander. I'm asking you to judge yourselves. By your own standards. By the legacy you built before you withdrew. Zhao studied him for what felt like an eternity. Then she spoke, her voice careful. There is wisdom in what you say. But wisdom alone does not move the Dragon Clan. What you propose requires significant additional resources. Why should other species contribute to solving our needs? Because this is an opportunity to build something better than what existed before. Better how? Daniel pulled up the star chart, showing the 17 worlds. You provide advanced extraction technology. The Kelvari provide access to alternative sites. Other species contribute ships, processing facilities, and labor. It takes longer, but everyone benefits. The Kelvari keep their home. You get your resources. And the galaxy learns that cooperation serves everyone better than domination. A noble vision, Zhao said, but there was something in her tone that made Daniel pause. But species do not cooperate without incentive. Why would the Valorians provide ships? Why would the Thesari share processing facilities? Because right now, 40 species are watching to see what happens here. If the Dragon Clan can choose cooperation over conquest, it sets a precedent. It shows that even ancient powers can adapt. That might doesn't have to mean domination. Zhao was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Softer, more thoughtful. You understand more than I expected. Daniel Carter. The Dragon Clan did not withdraw from galactic affairs by accident. We left because we saw ourselves becoming what we once fought against. Tyrants. Beings who took without thought because we could. And now? Now you ask us to remember what we once were. To choose the harder path because it is the right path. Zhao's image seemed to shimmer. I must consult with my clan. You will have your answer within one standard day. The hologram vanished. Daniel sat down heavily, his legs shaking. Kira approached slowly, her eyes wide. What you said to her? About legacy and wisdom? Was that planned? Some of it. Most of it, I made up as I went along. You gambled with 6 billion lives. I know. But it was the only chance we had. Lisa put a hand on his shoulder. Whether this works or not, you did something no one else even attempted. You gave the Kelvari hope. Daniel looked at the star chart still displayed on the screen. 17 worlds. Multiple extraction sites. A slower process that required cooperation instead of domination. It could work. The question was whether the Dragon Clan would choose to make it work. Outside the viewport, the Dragon Clan ship remained in orbit. Silent. Waiting. And on Kelvar Prime, 6 billion people held their breath, wondering if a single human's courage would be enough to save their world. The waiting was worse than the negotiation. Daniel spent 18 hours in the conference room, running calculations and reviewing data while Commander Zhao consulted with her clan. He knew the Dragon Clan was deliberating somewhere on that massive ship, deciding whether one human's argument was worth changing 5,000 years of behavior. Lisa brought him coffee at hour 12. She sat down across from him. Her face tired. You should rest. Can't. If Zhao agrees to the alternative plan, we need to be ready to implement it immediately. That means coordinating with multiple species, organizing extraction schedules, and establishing oversight protocols. And if she refuses? Daniel didn't answer. They both knew what happened if the Dragon Clan rejected his proposal. The Kelvari would be evacuated. Billions of people displaced. An entire civilization scattered across the galaxy. And Daniel would face whatever consequences Zhao deemed appropriate for wasting her time. The other delegates are talking, Lisa said quietly. About what you've done here. They think I'm an idiot. Some do, but others are saying you've shown courage they've forgotten existed. The Valorian ambassador told me that his species once stood against impossible odds, before they learned to calculate every risk and choose only winnable battles. Daniel looked up from his datapad. What are you saying? That maybe the galaxy needed someone foolish enough to try the impossible. To remind everyone that not every problem has to be solved through power or retreat. Before Daniel could respond, alarms chimed across the station. Not the warning klaxons from before. These were communication alerts. The Dragon Clan ship was transmitting. Daniel activated the conference room view screen. Commander Zhao's holographic form appeared, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood 3 other Dragon Clan members, each as imposing as she was. Their scales showed different colors, different patterns, but their eyes held the same ancient weight. Captain Daniel Carter, Zhao said formally. The Dragon Clan has considered your proposal. Daniel stood. His heart hammered in his chest. Lisa moved beside him, her presence steadying. Through the conference room windows, he could see other delegates gathering in the observation areas. The entire station seemed to hold its breath. We accept your framework, Zhao announced. Relief flooded through Daniel so fast, he had to grip the table to stay standing. Lisa gasped. Through the windows, he saw delegates reacting with shock and disbelief. However, Zhao continued, and Daniel's relief turned to caution. We have conditions. I'm listening, Commander. The Dragon Clan will provide advanced extraction technology to facilitate resource gathering from multiple sites. But we require human oversight of all operations. Not Kelvari. Not Valorian. Human. Daniel blinked. Why humans specifically? Because Earth is the only species that demonstrated the courage to approach us as equals rather than subjects. You did not beg. You did not threaten. You presented a logical argument and accepted that we might reject it. That is the quality we require in those who coordinate this effort. One of the other Dragon Clan members stepped forward. His scales were darker than Zhao's, almost black. I am Elder Kashin. I must ask, Captain Carter, do you understand what you have begun here? I think so. A partnership to extract Herium without displacing the Kelvari. That is the surface truth. The deeper truth is more significant. The Dragon Clan has not engaged in cooperative ventures with younger species for 5,000 years. You have convinced us to change that isolation, but change brings consequences you may not foresee. What kind of consequences? A third Dragon Clan member spoke, her scales blue like deep ocean water. I am Scholar Ming. The galaxy has organized itself around our absence. Power structures, territorial agreements, trade relationships, all built on the assumption that the Dragon Clan would not return. Our active participation will shift every dynamic. Some species will benefit. Others will lose influence. End quote. And they'll blame humanity for bringing us back, Zhao finished. Your species will face resentment, possibly hostility. Are you prepared for that burden? Daniel looked at Lisa. Her expression was conflicted. She understood politics better than he did. She could see the implications he was only beginning to grasp. Bringing the Dragon Clan back into galactic affairs would change everything, and Earth would be at the center of that change. I didn't do this to gain influence for humanity, Daniel said. I did it to save the Kelvari. Noble intentions do not prevent consequences, Elder Kashin said. But they do speak to character. We choose humans as coordinators precisely because you acted without calculating political advantage. There is more, Zhao added. The Herium extraction is not our only purpose in returning to this sector. We have been observing the younger species for decades. Watching how you have evolved in our absence. Most species demonstrated the same behavior we saw millennia ago. Cowardice. Self-interest. Retreat in the face of power. But one human walked forward, Scholar Ming said. When every other species fled, you approached us. You negotiated. You offered alternatives. That is why we propose something unprecedented. Zhao's image grew larger, more imposing. The Dragon Clan wishes to establish a formal embassy with the Galactic Council. We will share certain technologies. We will offer protection to developing worlds that are being exploited. We will participate in council decisions. But we require reforms. What kind of reforms? Daniel asked carefully. The practice of stronger species claiming territory from weaker ones must end. The exploitation of primitive worlds must cease. The Galactic Council has allowed these behaviors because no one had the power to stop them. We have that power, and we intend to use it. Daniel's mind raced. This was far beyond saving the Kelvari. This was the Dragon Clan returning to active galactic governance. Not as conquerors this time, but as enforcers of rules they deemed necessary. Some species won't accept that, he said. We are aware, Zhao replied. That is why we need human coordination. To bridge the gap between our expectations and galactic reality. To help us engage without dominating. To remind us of the lessons we learned 5,000 years ago. You're asking a lot of one species that's only been in space for a few decades. We are asking a lot of one human who demonstrated qualities we thought extinct in the galaxy. Courage. Integrity. The willingness to stand for principle over power. Zhao leaned forward. We do not expect you to accept immediately. Consult with your government, with your ambassador. Consider the weight of what we propose. But understand this, Elder Kashin added. If you decline, we will still honor the alternative extraction plan. The Kelvari will keep their world. But the broader relationship we offer will not be extended to another species. This opportunity exists because of you, Daniel Carter. It will not be offered again. The 4 Dragon Clan members watched him with ancient eyes, waiting. Through the windows, Daniel could see delegates pressed against the glass. Trying to understand what was happening, Lisa touched his arm gently. You don't have to answer now. Like they said, consult with Earth. With the Council, this decision is too big for one person. But Daniel was thinking about High Minister Kira and her people. About the terror in her eyes when she thought her world would die. About 6 billion lives hanging in the balance, because everyone else had run away. He thought about the Valorian ambassador who fled despite his species' military might. About the Korthan chairman abandoning his post. About 40 different species choosing fear over hope because that was the safe choice. And he thought about walking forward when everyone else stepped back. About standing on that platform alone, speaking to power that could have killed him with a thought. I'll do it, Daniel said. Lisa's eyes widened. Daniel, wait. You need to think about this. I have thought about it. The Dragon Clan is right. The galaxy has organized around their absence. Power has concentrated in ways that hurt weaker species. If they're willing to return and enforce fairness instead of domination, that's worth the risk. But Earth will be at the center of every conflict that results, Lisa argued. Every species that loses power will target us. Every dispute will demand our mediation. We're not ready for that responsibility. No species is ever ready for that kind of responsibility. But someone has to try. Just like someone had to try talking to the Dragon Clan in the first place. Zhao's expression showed something that might have been approval. You are certain? Once committed, there is no retreat from this path. I'm certain. Then we are agreed. The Dragon Clan will establish an embassy on Kelvar Prime. You, Daniel Carter, will serve as primary human liaison. We will coordinate the helium extraction as proof that cooperation serves all species better than domination. And we will begin the process of reforming the Galactic Council to prevent exploitation of weaker worlds. There's one more thing I need, Daniel said. All 4 Dragon Clan members looked surprised. Zhao's eyes narrowed. You make demands now? Not demands, a request. If this partnership is going to work, it can't be about the Dragon Clan imposing their will on everyone else. Even with the best intentions, that's just a different kind of domination. What do you propose? Arbitration, a neutral court that can hear disputes between the Dragon Clan and Council species. Earth can establish it, but it has to be truly independent, answerable to neither you nor the existing power structures. Scholar Ming chimed softly, a sound like crystal breaking. You ask us to submit to judgment by younger species? I'm asking for a system where no one is above accountability. Not the Dragon Clan. Not the Council. Not humanity. If we're building something better, it has to include checks on power. The 4 Dragon Clan members conferred in their own language, sounds Daniel couldn't interpret. Finally, Zhao turned back to him. We accept this condition. But understand that building such a system will take time. And it will be tested by those who resent any limits on their power. I understand. Then let us begin. High Minister Kira, are you present? Kira stepped forward from where she had been watching near the back of the room. Her voice shook. I am here, Commander. The Kelvari will retain their homeworld. Extraction operations will proceed from alternative sites under the coordination Captain Carter has proposed. Do you agree to these terms? Yes. Yes, we agree. Thank you. Thank you. Tears ran down Kira's face. Zhao's expression softened slightly. Thank your human captain. He is the one who stood when all others fled. Remember that courage. When the difficult times come. 0Z. Quote. 0Z. Quote flash. The holographic projection ended. Daniel sat down slowly, the weight of what he had just agreed to settling over him. Lisa put her hand on his shoulder. You just changed the galaxy, she said quietly. I just tried to save one planet. The rest kind of happened. That's how it always starts. One person trying to do the right thing, not knowing where it will lead. Through the windows, delegates were already talking rapidly, transmitting to their home governments. The news would spread across the galaxy within hours. The Dragon Clan was returning, and humanity was at the center of it all. Daniel looked at the star chart still displayed on his screen. 17 worlds, multiple extraction sites, a framework for cooperation, and beyond that, a galaxy that would never be the same. He had walked forward when everyone else stepped back. Now he had to walk a path no one had traveled before. Between power and principle. Between ancient authority and modern democracy. Between what the Dragon Clan was and what the galaxy needed them to be. It started with one conversation. One moment of courage. One human who refused to run. Where it ended, no one could say. But at least they would try. 6 months had passed since the Dragon Clan agreed to the alternative extraction plan. Daniel stood in the newly constructed embassy on Kelvar Prime, watching through the wide windows as ships from a dozen different species worked together in orbit. Valorian mining vessels, Thessari processing stations, Kelvari transport craft, and overseeing it all, the massive Dragon Clan ship that had started everything. The operation was working. Helium flowed from 17 different sites across the sector, gathered and processed through a coordination network that Daniel himself had designed. It was slower than extracting from a single, concentrated source, but it proved that cooperation could achieve what domination demanded. Captain Carter. Commander Zhao entered the office, her footsteps heavy on the polished floor. The latest extraction reports show we are ahead of schedule. Daniel turned from the window. The Valorian crews have been efficient, better than expected, because they have something to prove. Their ambassador still remembers fleeing when we arrived. Now he wants to demonstrate that his species can contribute meaningfully. Zhao settled into a chair reinforced to hold her weight. Pride drives species in unexpected ways. Is that why you agreed to this? To prove the Dragon Clan could change? Partially. But mostly because you were correct. Efficiency is not the same as wisdom. We had forgotten that truth during our isolation. They had fallen into an easy working relationship over the months. Daniel still felt awe in Zhao's presence, but the terror had faded. She was not the untouchable force he had first encountered. She was a person, ancient and powerful, but still capable of doubt and growth. The council session begins in 2 hours, Daniel said. Are you prepared for the resistance? Resistance is expected. Change always faces opposition. Today marked the first official Galactic Council session since the Dragon Clan established their embassy. Zhao would present a series of reforms aimed at protecting weaker species from exploitation. The reaction would determine whether the partnership Daniel had built could survive real political conflict. The council chamber on Kelvar Prime was smaller than the one on the orbital station, but it held the same representatives. 40 species gathered, their expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. Daniel took his seat in the human delegation area. Lisa Montgomery sat beside him, now officially designated as Earth's ambassador to Dragon Clan affairs. This is going to be rough, she whispered. I know. Zhao entered the chamber, and the room fell silent. 6 months of working together had not diminished her presence. She walked to the central platform with the confidence of a species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Members of the Galactic Council, Zhao began. The Dragon Clan proposes 3 reforms to current territorial and resource policies. She outlined the changes. First, any species claiming territory must prove that no sentient life exists there. Second, primitive worlds under development would be protected from exploitation until they achieved spaceflight independently. Third, resource extraction from inhabited worlds required consent from the local population, not just the ruling government. The Valorian ambassador stood immediately. These reforms would cripple expansion for developing species. How are we supposed to grow if we cannot claim new territory? By claiming uninhabited territory, Zhao replied calmly. Or by negotiating fairly with those who already live where you wish to expand. The Dragon Clan has no authority to impose such rules. We have the authority of power and the authority of historical precedent. These same rules governed the galaxy during our active stewardship 5,000 years ago. A Korthon delegate rose. But you withdrew from active stewardship. For 5 millennia, The Council has operated under different principles. You cannot simply return and erase what we have built. We do not seek to erase, Zhao said. We seek to correct. The principles you have built permit stronger species to dominate weaker ones. That is not governance. That is exploitation. The chamber erupted into arguments. Species shouted across the room. Some supported the reforms, particularly smaller species who had suffered under aggressive expansion. Others opposed them, especially those who had benefited from the current system. Daniel watched the chaos unfold. This was the moment he had feared. The point where good intentions collided with political reality. The Dragon Clan had the power to enforce their reforms, but enforcement through might alone would make them tyrants rather than partners. He stood and activated his microphone. "May I speak?" The arguing slowed. Delegates turned to look at him. The human, who had negotiated with the Dragon Clan, who had convinced them to choose cooperation over domination. "I understand the concern," Daniel said. "These reforms represent significant change, and change is difficult, especially when it limits what we have become accustomed to doing. But I want to ask a question. When the Dragon Clan arrived 6 months ago, what did we do?" Silence filled the chamber. "We ran. Every species in this room fled because we believed the Dragon Clan would take what they wanted without negotiation. We accepted that might made right when the might belonged to them. So why do we now defend a system that operates on that same principle?" The Valorian ambassador's expression darkened. "That is not the same situation, isn't it? You claim territory because you have the ships and weapons to hold it. The Dragon Clan claimed Kelvar Prime because they had the power to take it. The only difference is scale. We follow council law," a Thessari delegate chimed. "We operate within established frameworks. Frameworks that permit exploitation if you are strong enough to get away with it. Commander Zhao is not proposing that we abandon expansion or resource gathering. She is proposing that we do those things with consent rather than force. Is that truly so unreasonable?" A smaller species representative, a Quellan named Tiber, stood. "The human speaks truth. My species has lost 3 colony worlds to aggressive expansion by larger neighbors. The council ruled that since we lacked sufficient military presence, we could not contest the claims. Where is the justice in that? The justice is in capability," the Valorian ambassador argued. "If you cannot hold territory, you cannot claim it." "Then by that logic," Daniel said quietly, "the Dragon Clan was justified in claiming Kelvar Prime. They had the capability. The Kelvari did not. Should we have simply accepted their displacement?" The Valorian had no answer. The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. Zhao spoke again, her voice measured. "We understand this is difficult. The Dragon Clan does not expect immediate compliance or perfect implementation. But we do expect the Council to begin moving toward a system that protects the weak rather than empowering the strong. That is not tyranny. That is basic decency. And if we refuse?" The question came from a species Daniel did not recognize. "If the Council rejects these reforms, then we will enforce them ourselves," Zhao said flatly. "We do not wish to rule through fear. But we will not stand by while sentient beings are exploited. You may choose cooperation or resistance, but the outcome is not in doubt." The chamber erupted again. Delegates shouted about Dragon Clan overreach, about the importance of council sovereignty, about the dangers of allowing ancient powers to dictate modern policy. Daniel sat down, exhausted. This was not going to be resolved today. Lisa leaned close. "You did what you could. It's not enough. They see the Dragon Clan as just another power trying to dominate them. Because in some ways, that's what this is. Even with good intentions, imposing change through threat of force is still domination." Daniel knew she was right. This was the fundamental problem. The Dragon Clan wanted to protect weaker species, but their method was to use their overwhelming power to enforce compliance. It would save lives. It would prevent exploitation, but it would also prove that the Dragon Clan had not truly changed. They had just found a more benevolent excuse for domination. An idea formed in his mind. Dangerous. Possibly foolish. But it might be the only way forward. He stood again. Commander Zhao. May I propose something? Zhao looked at him with curiosity. Speak. You want to enforce these reforms. The Council wants sovereignty. Both positions are understandable, but there is a middle path, which is the arbitration court we discussed. Establish it now. Make it truly independent. When disputes arise about territorial claims or resource extraction, both parties bring their cases to the court. The court decides based on the principles in your reforms, but the Dragon Clan agrees to abide by the court's decisions, even when you disagree with them. The chamber went quiet. Zhao's eyes narrowed. You ask us to submit to judgment by beings we could destroy with ease? I'm asking you to prove that you mean what you say, that this is about justice, not power. If you truly believe in these reforms, then let them be tested in a neutral venue. Let species bring their cases and have them heard fairly. And let the Dragon Clan be bound by the same rules they ask others to follow. That would take years to establish, a Korthan delegate said. So we start now. We create a framework. We appoint judges from multiple species, including some from the Dragon Clan. We develop a legal structure that protects the weak while respecting the rights of the strong. It won't be perfect at first. It will be tested and challenged. But it will be ours, not imposed by the Dragon Clan. Not dictated by the powerful. Ours. Zhao was silent for a long moment. Daniel could see her weighing the proposal. It asked the Dragon Clan to limit their own power, to accept that they could be wrong, to trust in a system that did not yet exist. Finally, she spoke. The Dragon Clan will agree to this proposal on one condition. What condition? That Daniel Carter leads the establishment of this court. You will select the judges. You will develop the legal framework. You will ensure that it remains truly neutral. This is a human idea. Let humanity be responsible for making it work. Daniel felt the weight of every eye in the chamber on him. This was beyond coordinating Herium extraction. This was creating a new institution that would shape galactic governance for generations. If I do this, he said slowly, I need authority from the Council. Not just from Earth, from all member species. I need judges from across the galaxy. I need legal experts who understand different systems of justice, and I need the Council's commitment that they will respect the court's authority. The Korthan chairman, who had been silent throughout the session, finally stood. If the Dragon Clan truly agrees to submit to this court's judgment, then the Korthan delegation will support its establishment. One by one, other delegates voiced their support. Not all of them. The Valorians remained skeptical. Some smaller species worried it would become another tool of the powerful. But enough agreed to move forward. Then it is decided, Zhao announced. Captain Daniel Carter will establish the Galactic Arbitration Court. The Dragon Clan commits to abiding by its decisions, and the Council commits to respecting its authority. This is how we build something better than what existed before. The session ended in cautious optimism rather than consensus. But it was a start. As delegates filed out of the chamber, Daniel remained in his seat, trying to process what he had just agreed to. Lisa sat beside him. You just committed to creating an entire legal system from scratch. I know. You're either very brave or very crazy. Probably both. Zhao approached them, her massive form casting a shadow over their seats. You surprised me today, Daniel Carter. I expected you to defend my position. Instead, you proposed limiting my power, because unlimited power corrupts, even when held by beings with good intentions. You understand more about governance than species with millennia of experience. That is why this might actually work. Zhao turned to leave, then paused. But understand this. What you have started today will be tested. There will be species who try to manipulate the court. Others who will reject its authority. And there will be those who blame you when difficult decisions must be made. I know. Then why agree to it? Daniel thought about the moment 6 months ago when he had walked forward while everyone else ran. About standing alone on that platform, facing power that could have killed him without effort. Because someone has to try, he said simply. Zhao's expression softened into something that might have been a smile. That is precisely why you are the right human for this task. She left the chamber. Daniel and Lisa sat in the empty room, watching ships work together through the distant windows. This is going to change everything, Lisa said. It already has. We're just trying to keep up with the changes. Do you think it will work? The court? I don't know. But it's better than the alternative. Better than letting the Dragon Clan rule through force. Even benevolent force. Better than letting the powerful exploit the weak. We're trying to build something that serves everyone. That has to count for something. Even if it costs you everything? Daniel looked at her. What do you mean? You're already the human who negotiated with the Dragon Clan. Now you'll be the human who created the court that limits their power. And the court that restricts council expansion. You'll be blamed by everyone when things go wrong. Then I'll deal with that when it happens. Right now, I have a court to build. They left the chamber together. Outside, Kelvar Prime continued its daily rhythm. 6 billion Kelvari went about their lives on a world they had almost lost. Ships from across the galaxy worked together in orbit, proof that cooperation could replace domination. And somewhere in his small office, Daniel Carter began sketching the framework for a legal system that would try to bring justice to the stars. It was an impossible task, but impossible tasks seemed to be his specialty now. He had walked forward when everyone stepped back. Now he would build something that might outlast them all. One decision at a time. One case at a time. One moment of courage leading to the next. 2 years had passed since Daniel proposed the Galactic Arbitration Court. The building now stood at the edge of Kelvar Prime's capital city, a structure designed by architects from 12 different species. It combined Dragon Clan grandeur with Korthan functionality, Thesari beauty with human practicality. The court had heard 43 cases in its first year of operation. Some decisions had been celebrated, others had sparked outrage. But the system was working. Daniel walked through the main hall, reviewing his notes for today's case. This one would test everything they had built. The Valorian Expansion Council versus the Dragon Clan over territorial rights in the outer reaches. Both sides claimed ancient precedent. Both had filed extensive briefs. And both had made it clear they expected to win. Nervous? Lisa appeared beside him, carrying a stack of legal documents. Terrified, Daniel admitted. If we rule for the Valorians, the Dragon Clan might see it as a betrayal. If we rule for the Dragon Clan, every species will say the court is just a tool for them to impose their will. Welcome to justice. Someone is always unhappy with the outcome. The courtroom was already filling with observers. Representatives from every council species had come to watch. This case would set precedents that shaped galactic expansion for generations. Daniel took his seat at the judge's bench, flanked by 4 other judges from different species. High Judge Terran from the Korthan, Judge Crystalline from the Thesari, Judge Vex from a small species called the Quellan, and Judge Hiroshi from Earth, a retired legal scholar who had helped Daniel design the court's entire framework. The Valorian legal team entered first. 3 attorneys in formal military dress, their bearing confident. They believed their case was solid. Historical records showed Valorian exploration of the disputed sector centuries before the Dragon Clan withdrew from active governance. Then Commander Zhao entered, accompanied by 2 Dragon Clan legal scholars. Zhao no longer handled extraction operations. She had taken a formal position as Dragon Clan ambassador to the Galactic Court. She nodded to Daniel as she took her seat. A gesture of respect between equals, something unthinkable 2 years ago. This court is now in session, Daniel announced. Case number 44. The Valorian Expansion Council versus the Dragon Clan Territorial Commission. The question before us is whether the Valorians have legitimate claim to establish colonies in Sector 7 of the Outer Reaches, or whether Dragon Clan historical rights supersede modern exploration. The Valorian lead attorney, a stern female named Commander Kestra, stood. Your Honor, the facts are clear. Valorian exploration teams surveyed this sector 400 years ago. We have documented proof of our presence. The Dragon Clan was not active in galactic affairs at that time. They cannot claim territory they abandoned for millennia. Scholar Ming stood for the Dragon Clan. The Dragon Clan seeded that sector with protective satellites 6,000 years ago. The satellites remain active. Our claim predates Valorian exploration by millennia. Modern exploration does not erase historical ownership, but you abandoned active stewardship, Kestra argued. You withdrew from galactic governance. That withdrawal meant releasing your claims to territory you were not actively using. We withdrew from governance, not ownership. There is a distinction. The arguments went back and forth for 2 hours. Legal precedents from a dozen different species. Historical records dating back millennia. Competing interpretations of what constituted legitimate territorial claims. Daniel listened carefully, taking notes. The other judges did the same. This was not about who had more power. It was about what principles should govern expansion in a galaxy where species had different levels of technology, different histories, and different concepts of ownership. Finally, both sides finished their presentations. Daniel called for a recess while the judges deliberated. They gathered in a private chamber behind the courtroom. This is impossible, Judge Vex said immediately. Both sides have legitimate arguments. How do we choose? We don't choose sides, Judge Hiroshi said. We choose principles. What rule serves the galaxy best going forward? High Judge Terran spoke carefully. If we rule that ancient claims always supersede modern exploration, we freeze the galaxy. Species that achieved spaceflight early own everything. Those who developed later have nowhere to expand. But if we rule that abandonment erases all historical claims, Crystalline chimed, then the Dragon Clan's return means nothing. Any species can claim territory the Dragon Clan once protected, regardless of why it was protected. Daniel had been thinking about this for weeks. What if it is not about who has the stronger claim, but about what exists in the disputed sector now? The other judges turned to him. Explain, Terran said. The Valorians want to establish colonies. The Dragon Clan claims historical ownership. But what is actually in Sector 7 right now? According to the surveys both sides submitted, there are 17 planets. 3 have primitive life. None have sentient species. The Dragon Clan satellites protect those 3 planets from exploitation. The remaining 14 are barren, so we split the decision, Judge Hiroshi said, understanding where Daniel was going. The Dragon Clan retains protection rights over the 3 planets with primitive life. The Valorians can claim the 14 barren worlds. Both sides get something. Neither gets everything. The Valorians won't like being limited to barren worlds, Vex said, and the Dragon Clan won't like having their historical territory divided, Crystalline added. But it serves the principle we established when we created this court, Daniel said. Protection of the weak. The primitive species on those 3 planets cannot defend themselves. They deserve protection, but the 14 barren worlds have no one living there. The Valorians can use them without causing harm. The judges debated for another hour, refining the decision, considering implications. Finally, they reached consensus. Not unanimous, but enough to proceed. They returned to the courtroom. Daniel stood. This court has reached a decision. The room fell silent. Zhao leaned forward slightly. Commander Kestra's jaw was tight. We find that both parties have legitimate claims based on their respective legal frameworks. However, this court's founding principle is the protection of those who cannot protect themselves. Therefore, we rule as follows. The Dragon Clan retains protective authority over planets 7-4, 7-9, and 7-12, all of which harbor primitive life. No colonization or resource extraction will be permitted on these worlds, until and unless their native species achieve spaceflight independently and consent to outside presence. Zhao nodded slowly. The Dragon Clan had defended those protections most fiercely. However, Daniel continued, the remaining 14 planets in Sector 7 are barren of life. The Valorian Expansion Council has demonstrated active exploration and investment in surveying this region. Therefore, the Valorians are granted colonization rights to these 14 worlds, subject to standard environmental protocols and council oversight. Commander Kestra's expression was unreadable. She had wanted all 17 planets. But she had also expected to lose entirely against Dragon Clan historical claims. Both parties are directed to coordinate their activities in Sector 7 to prevent conflicts. The Dragon Clan will maintain monitoring stations near the protected worlds. The Valorians will establish colonies on the barren worlds. This court will retain jurisdiction over any disputes that arise from this division. Daniel sat down. The courtroom erupted into conversation. Observers debated whether the ruling was fair, whether it set dangerous precedents, whether splitting the decision showed wisdom or weakness. Zhao stood and approached the bench. For a moment, Daniel wondered if she would reject the ruling, challenge the court's authority, prove that the Dragon Clan would only accept decisions that went entirely their way. This court has shown wisdom, Zhao said formally. The Dragon Clan accepts this ruling. Relief flooded through Daniel. Across the room, Commander Kestra stood as well. The Valorian Expansion Council accepts this ruling. Though we disagree with some aspects, we acknowledge the court's authority. The session ended. As observers filed out, arguing about implications and precedents, Daniel remained at the bench. Judge Hiroshi approached him. You did well. That was not an easy decision to make. I keep waiting for someone to reject the court's authority entirely. To prove this whole thing was a nice idea that cannot survive real political conflict. It will happen eventually. Some species will refuse to accept a ruling. That is when we discover if this court has real authority, or if it is just a polite fiction. Encouraging, Daniel said dryly. Hiroshi smiled. You built something that matters, Daniel. It won't be perfect. It will be challenged. But it exists. That is more than anyone thought possible 2 years ago. That evening, Daniel sat in his office overlooking the city. Lisa joined him, bringing coffee. The council is already analyzing the ruling, she said, trying to figure out what it means for their own territorial disputes. That's good. It means they take the court seriously. It also means you've created a target on Earth's back. Every species that loses a case will blame human influence on the court. I know. But what's the alternative? Let the strong dominate the weak? Let the Dragon Clan rule through force? Even benevolent force? At least this way. There are rules. There is accountability. Lisa sat down beside him. Do you ever regret it? Walking forward when everyone else ran? Daniel thought about that day 2 years ago. Standing alone on that platform while every species in the galaxy fled. Facing Commander Zhao without knowing if she would kill him or hear him out. No. I regret the burden it put on Earth. I regret that humanity is now at the center of every political conflict in the galaxy. But I don't regret trying to save the Kelvari. Or building something better than what existed before. Even knowing what it cost you? What did it cost me? Lisa looked at him with sad eyes. Your life, Daniel. You were supposed to be a junior officer learning galactic protocols. Instead, you're the most politically significant human alive. You can't go home. You can't have a normal life. You're trapped in this role for as long as the court exists. I'm not trapped. I chose this. Did you? Or did circumstances force you into a choice where saying no meant watching billions die? Daniel had no answer for that. She was right in many ways. He had not planned to become the bridge between the Dragon Clan and the galaxy. He had not wanted to create a legal system that would define his entire life. But when the moment came, when everyone else ran, what choice did he really have? Someone had to try, he said quietly. That's what you always say. But you shouldn't have had to be the someone. Before Daniel could respond, his communicator chimed. A priority message from the Korthon delegation. He activated the display. Captain Carter, High Judge Terran's face appeared. We have a situation. A Quellan colony in the inner sectors has been threatened by a larger species claiming the system. The Quellan government has filed for emergency arbitration. They want the court to intervene before military action begins. Daniel's exhaustion vanished. How much time do we have? Hours, maybe less. The aggressive species has ships in orbit. The Quellan have no military capable of resisting. They are asking the court to issue an immediate protection order under the precedent we set in today's ruling. This was it, the moment Judge Hiroshi had warned about. A case where the court's authority would be tested in real time. Where refusing to act meant watching people die, but acting might spark a war. Convene the judges, Daniel said. Emergency session in 1 hour. And contact Commander Zhao. If we're going to issue a protection order, we need to know the Dragon Clan will enforce it. Terran's image nodded and vanished. Daniel stood, reaching for his formal robes. Lisa grabbed his arm. Daniel, this is dangerous. If you order protection and the aggressive species refuses to comply, the court's authority collapses. But if you don't act, the Quellan will be conquered. I know. So what are you going to do? Daniel thought about Judge Vex, the Quellan judge on the court. About his species being too small, too weak to defend their own territory. About the principle that had driven everything he had built. Protection of those who cannot protect themselves. I'm going to do what I did 2 years ago. Walk forward, while everyone else wants to step back. This isn't the same. 2 years ago, you risked only yourself. Now you're risking the entire court. Maybe even peace in the galaxy. Then I'll make sure the risk is worth it. He headed for the door. Lisa followed. I'm coming with you. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Someone needs to keep you from getting yourself killed. They walked through the halls of the court building together. Other judges were already arriving, summoned by emergency protocols. Daniel could see fear in their eyes. This was the moment they had all known would come, when the court's authority would either be confirmed or destroyed. Commander Zhao was waiting in the deliberation chamber when Daniel arrived. Her expression was serious. I understand the situation, she said without preamble. A Quellan colony threatened by the Dravik's supremacy. The Draviks are aggressive but not foolish. They will test the court's authority if they believe we will not act. Can the Dragon Clan respond in time? Daniel asked. We have ships in that sector. If the court issues a protection order, we can enforce it within 2 hours. But Daniel, you must understand what this means. If the Draviks refuse to withdraw, we will have to use force. The court will be responsible for starting a conflict, or we will be preventing one. The Quellan filed for protection. They are asking us to uphold the principles we established. The other judges entered. Judge Vex looked terrified. His species' fate rested on this decision. They gathered around the table, and Daniel laid out the situation. The Dravik supremacy claims the Quellan colony violated territorial agreements by expanding too close to Dravik space. The Quellan claim they filed proper notice and received no objection. Now Dravik ships are in orbit, demanding the colony be abandoned within 12 hours. Do we have jurisdiction? Judge Hiroshi asked. The Quellan are council members. They filed for arbitration. Under our charter, we have authority to issue emergency protection orders when member species face immediate threat. But do we have the power to enforce such an order? Crystalline chimed softly. All eyes turned to Zhao. She met their gazes steadily. The Dragon Clan will enforce any legitimate order this court issues. But you must be certain. Once we intervene, there is no turning back. Daniel looked at his fellow judges. At Judge Vex, who could barely speak because his species was the one in danger. At Terran, who understood the political implications. At Crystalline, who had learned to trust in cooperation. At Hiroshi, who had helped build this entire system. We created this court to protect the weak, Daniel said. To give species like the Quellan a place to seek justice when they face threats they cannot handle alone. If we refuse to act now, we prove the court is meaningless, just another political institution that serves the powerful while abandoning the vulnerable. But if we act and fail, Terran said, we may trigger a war that costs more lives than one colony. Then we make sure we don't fail. They voted. 4 in favor of issuing the protection order. 1 abstention from Judge Vex, who recognized he could not vote on a case involving his own species. The decision was made. Daniel drafted the order himself. By authority granted under the Galactic Arbitration Court Charter, we issue an immediate protection order for Quellan Colony 779. The Dravic's supremacy is directed to withdraw all military vessels from the system pending full arbitration of territorial claims. Failure to comply will result in enforcement action by Dragon Clan peacekeeping forces. He transmitted the order to the Dravics, to the Quellan, to every species in the galaxy. This was the moment. The court had spoken. Now the galaxy would see if anyone listened. 2 hours later, reports came in. The Dravic ships had withdrawn from orbit. Not happily, not quietly, but they had withdrawn. The Dragon Clan vessels that arrived to enforce the order had not fired a single shot. The court's authority had been tested, and it had held. Judge Vex approached Daniel after the crisis passed. Tears ran down his face. "You saved my people. The court saved your people. That's why it exists." "No. You saved them. When the Dravics threatened us, we had no hope. We expected to lose our colony. But you built this court. You gave species like mine a voice, a chance." Daniel felt the weight of those words. This was why he had walked forward, why he had risked everything. Not for power or recognition, but for moments like this, when the weak found protection, when justice mattered more than might. 3 months later, Daniel stood at the same window in his office. The Dravics' territorial case had been resolved through proper arbitration. The Quellan kept most of their colony. The Dravics received compensation for legitimate grievances. Both sides accepted the ruling. The court had handled 70 cases now. Not all had ended peacefully. Some species still resented the system. But it was working. Slowly, imperfectly, but working. Zhao entered his office without knocking. They were past such formalities now. "I came to tell you something," she said. "The Dragon Clan Council has been watching what you built here. How you navigate between power and principle. How you seek justice even when it costs you personally. And they want to know if you would consider serving as permanent Chief Justice of the court. Not just during its establishment, but as its leader for the foreseeable future." Daniel looked at her in shock. "I'm barely 30 years old. I have no formal legal training. I'm not qualified to lead a galactic legal system. You are the only being qualified. Because you understand what the others do not. That justice is not about following rules perfectly. It is about trying to do right, even when the path is unclear. I don't know if I can do this for decades. It's already cost me everything. What has it cost you that matters more than what you have built?" Daniel thought about his answer to Lisa months ago. About choosing this path even knowing the burden. About walking forward when everyone stepped back. "Nothing," he admitted. "It has cost me nothing that matters more." "Then you have your answer." Zhao left him alone with the decision. Outside his window, ships from across the galaxy moved peacefully through Kelvar Prime's orbit. A civilization that had nearly been displaced now thrived as the center of galactic justice. Daniel thought about that day 2 years ago, about standing on a platform alone while the galaxy fled in terror. About one moment of courage that had grown into something larger than he ever imagined. He had not known where it would lead. He still did not know where it would end. But he understood now what it meant to walk forward, to choose the harder path because it was the right path. To build something that served others even when it cost you everything. The communicator chimed. Another case filing. Another species seeking justice. Another opportunity to prove that might did not make right. That the weak deserved protection. That courage and principle could shape the stars. Daniel Carter accepted the communication and began to read. This was his life now. Not what he had planned. Not what he had expected. But what he had chosen when he walked forward while everyone else stepped back. And he would keep walking forward, one case at a time, one decision at a time, one moment of courage leading to the next, because someone had to try, and that someone was him.